Listen. Practice. Speak. Practice makes you perfect.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We get a ton of requests to cover all kinds of professional topics.
And it's true, the variety of stuff we've been sent lately, wow.
Yeah, it really makes you realize just how much of our work lives hinge on having really solid conversations. So today we're going to be doing a deep dive into improving conversations, specifically in a business context.
And I think what's really exciting is the range of scenarios we've got to work with. Everything from mapping out those long-term strategic plans to making sure teams are really humming, even navigating those tricky situations like a sudden crisis.
Right, so across all the stuff you sent, we've pinpointed 9 key areas. And our aim, well, we want to give you some practical techniques, those nuggets of wisdom that can help you turn your everyday workplace conversations into real tools for success.
Sounds good. Where should we begin?
Okay, let's start with the foundation. Strategic planning. It seems like getting those initial planning sessions nailed down, and I mean really clear on your goals from the get-go, that's crucial.
Yeah, and one thing that really pops out from the material is this idea you got to outline your priority goals first. Then and only then, you figure out how to use your resources to hit those goals.
Like what comes first, the cart or the horse?
Exactly. What we often see is teams get so caught up in the how that they kind of skip over the why. The sources are pretty adamant about flipping that script. Define those 2, maybe 3 absolutely non-negotiable outcomes first. That becomes your filter, It ensures that everything you discuss later, all those decisions about resources, they all lead back to those core goals.
So no wasted effort on stuff that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things.
Precisely. And it's not just about setting the destination, is it? It's about mapping out the journey. You need those milestones along the way, those checkpoints that tell you if you're still on the right track.
I like that, like signposts on a long road trip. You got to know if you're heading in the right direction.
Exactly. And those milestones are vital for keeping everyone on the same page. Every department needs to understand their piece of the puzzle, what they're responsible for, when it needs to be done. That kind of clarity, it breeds accountability.
Keeps everyone in sync. Now, the sources also talk about the importance of thinking ahead, like really considering potential market shifts and even drafting contingency plans. It's almost like having a plan B or even a plan C ready to go just in case things don't go as expected.
Yeah, that's a theme that comes up again and again, proactivity. You can't just react to changes. You need to anticipate them. And those clear review intervals, as the material suggests, that's your chance to step back, reassess, and make adjustments before a small hiccup becomes a major crisis.
So staying informed, having your finger on the pulse is crucial. There's a lot of emphasis on collecting data, those recent surveys, and then really digging into the trends that emerge.
Absolutely. And what stood out to me is the suggestion to dedicate a specific time to review that data, like block it off in your calendar. That way, those critical insights don't just get lost in the day-to-day whirlwind.
It's like giving those insights the space they deserve so they can actually have an impact.
Precisely. Now, another theme that pops up consistently is communication. Specifically, the importance of keeping everyone in the loop. We're talking about all stakeholders, that's employees, customers, investors, even suppliers, really anyone who has a vested interest in the plan.
It's about making sure everyone has the information they need when they need it.
Yeah.
Like transparent and timely communication. That's the lifeblood of a successful strategic plan.
Right, and that open dialogue, it fosters a sense of shared understanding. When everyone feels heard and informed, it strengthens teamwork across the entire organization.
Now, here's an idea I really like. Creating a central online platform for all things strategic. A place where everyone can get project updates, give feedback, that kind of continuous back and forth.
What's really interesting about this idea is that it's not just about broadcasting information. It's about building a collaborative space, a place where people can actively engage in the process.
It becomes more dynamic, more inclusive.
Exactly. So you have your plan, you have your communication channels, but then there's always that one crucial element, the budget.
Ah, yes. Money makes the world go round. And the sources are pretty clear about this. Confirm a realistic budget early on, and bring in your finance team right from the get-go.
Right. Get those figures finalized promptly, because the last thing you want is to have your plan stalled because of budget snags down the line.
It's all about being prepared.
Yeah.
And that preparation extends beyond just the budget, right? There's this idea of anticipating potential roadblocks, like supplier delays or changes in regulation.
Yeah. Think of it as having that contingency plan. What happens if X, Y, or Z throws a wrench in the works? Not just for the budget, but also for your staffing, your operations.
Being prepared for those unexpected hiccups, that's a sign of a truly resilient organization. And that preparedness should extend to how you communicate externally as well. Right. Being transparent with your clients and partners about your strategic direction.
Absolutely. It builds trust. It reinforces your credibility. It shows that you have a clear vision and you're in control, even when faced with unexpected challenges.
And finally, wrapping it all up, those presentations for the executive board, making sure you've got all the bases covered, ready to answer any question that comes your way.
Yeah, this is where that meticulous preparation really pays off. Being able to confidently address any inquiries shows that you've thought things through, that you really own the strategy.
It inspires confidence from the top down.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears now and talk about something that's increasingly important in today's globalized world, cross-cultural collaboration.
Right. Building rapport within international teams, it starts with understanding, well, pretty much everything. Communication styles, those subtle cultural nuances, even those pesky time zone differences.
Yeah, the sources really emphasize taking a holistic view. It's not just about language, right? It's about understanding the underlying cultural norms, those unspoken rules that influence how people interact.
Exactly. And being aware of those subtle differences, that's the first step towards smoother, more effective collaboration.
And of course, bridging those language gaps, making sure everyone can communicate clearly, that's essential. The materials suggest dedicated language support programs.
Right. That kind of investment sends a clear message. You value your global teams, and you're committed to creating an inclusive environment.
And that inclusivity extends beyond just language, right? The sources talk about the importance of respectful dialogue and really making sure everyone feels comfortable contributing their ideas.
Absolutely. When everyone feels valued, when their input is truly respected, it creates a much more engaged and productive team dynamic.
Diversity training is also highlighted. It's a way to proactively address those potential misunderstandings that can crop up when you're working with people from different cultures.
Yeah, it's about building cultural sensitivity, that awareness that not everyone sees the world the same way. And that can go a long way in preventing those unintentional faux pas that can derail team dynamics.
To get into the practical side of things, the material suggests periodic workshops with, real experts in cross-cultural collaboration.
It's about giving people the tools and techniques they need to navigate the complexities of a global team.
And what better way to learn than from seeing what works in the real world? The sources talk about showcasing successful international partnerships, gathering those case studies, those real-world examples.
It's like saying, look, this is what success looks like. This is how it's done. And that can be incredibly inspiring for teams who are trying to figure out their own approach.
Yeah, what about when things get a little rocky? The sources talk about the need for a cleared process for resolving conflict, especially in diverse teams.
Right. That structure is so important. Having a framework in place, emphasizing mutual respect, ensuring that any mediation is swift and fair, that helps to prevent disagreements from festering and escalating into bigger issues.
It's about setting clear expectations right from the start. Things like communication etiquette, meeting protocols, even agreeing on which collaboration tools you're going to use.
That kind of clarity minimizes ambiguity and helps to create a level playing field for everyone, regardless of their cultural background.
And then there's always the challenge of those pesky time zones. The material highlights the importance of fairness, rotating meeting times, so that no one team is consistently burdened.
It's about showing consideration for everyone's time and location. And it also fosters a sense of shared responsibility, making sure everyone contributes equally.
And it's not just the big things, right? Recognizing cultural holidays, acknowledging those local celebrations, those small gestures, can go a long way in building rapport and making people feel seen and valued.
Absolutely. It shows that you're not just treating people as cogs in a machine, but as individuals with their own unique cultural backgrounds.
And finally, it's about measuring the impact of your efforts, right? Looking at feedback, analyzing project outcomes, using those metrics to see what's working and what needs tweaking.
That data-driven approach is essential. It allows you to objectively assess the effectiveness of your cross-cultural initiatives and make data-informed adjustments.
All right, let's get down to brass tacks budget allocation. Now, it's not a one and done kind of thing, is it? The sources suggest revisiting your budget allocations pretty regularly.
Right. It's a dynamic process. You're constantly evaluating where your money is going and if it's giving you the best bang for your buck. You're looking at department requests, revenue projections, even unexpected expenses that pop up.
And sometimes that means making some tough choices, right?
Yeah.
The material talks about potential overspending in certain areas and the need to, maybe shift those funds to where they'll have a bigger impact.
It's about prioritization. It's about asking, what are the most strategically important initiatives? Where will our investments generate the highest return?
And that doesn't mean slashing and burning across the board.
Yeah.
There's this emphasis on a balanced approach, making sure each department has the resources they need to function effectively.
Every part of the organization plays a role in achieving those larger strategic goals, so the budget needs to reflect that.
And being prepared for the unexpected, financially speaking, that's crucial too. Having that updated revenue projections and maintaining a contingency fund, your financial safety net for those just-in-case moments.
It's about having that financial cushion so you're not thrown completely off course by unexpected economic shifts or those sudden regulatory changes that seem to come out of nowhere.
Now, thinking about the future, there's this emphasis on allocating resources for digital transformation, really integrating technology into all aspects of the business.
And what's interesting is the emphasis on not just spending, but also saving. Finding those efficiencies, streamlining processes, renegotiating supplier contracts.
It's about freeing up resources so you can invest them in those key areas that will drive long-term growth, like digital transformation.
Exactly. And investing in the right people, that's another key takeaway. Recruiting top talent, particularly in specialized fields that can have a huge impact on your product quality, your brand reputation.
Yeah, sometimes spending more upfront on talent can lead to significant gains down the road. Now, to make sure everyone's on the same page, the sources recommend having the finance team present a revised budget draft and then getting feedback from those department heads.
It's about collaboration and transparency. It's about ensuring that everyone understands the financial realities, the limits, and feels a sense of ownership over their department's budget.
It creates buy-in and accountability across the board. And of course, at the end of the day, you need to be able to present this clearly to the executive committee.
Concise, easy to understand, with all those supporting documents to justify each allocation choice. That builds confidence in your financial stewardship.
No room for ambiguity. And then, even after the budget is approved, the work isn't over, right?
Yeah.
You got to keep a close eye on things, be ready to adapt if those unexpected challenges arise.
It's vigilance. It's about being proactive, protecting the integrity of your budget, and making sure you stay on track to achieve those strategic goals.
Okay, let's talk about how we work together now. With so many people working remotely, the sources really stress the importance of having a clear framework for remote work.
Yeah.
Addressing things like schedules, reporting methods, and those essential collaboration tools.
Yeah. The key is to find that balance between structure and flexibility. Define the parameters that ensure everyone can work together effectively, but also allow for that autonomy that makes remote work so appealing.
Right. So maybe you define core working hours, but then allow for flexible scheduling outside of those hours.
Exactly. As long as there's enough overlap for those real-time discussions, those brainstorming sessions, those crucial moments when you need to be able to connect as a team.
Now, we all know how easy it is to get sucked into back-to-back virtual meetings. The material actually cautions against overuse, emphasizing the need to balance those meetings with personal focus time.
Right. You have to protect that time for deep work, for individual concentration. Otherwise, productivity can really take a hit.
And then, of course, there's the security aspect. When people are working remotely, you have to make sure your data security policies are up to snuff. Things like VPN usage, regular software updates, that kind of thing.
It's about mitigating those cybersecurity risks. And this is where your IT team plays a crucial role, providing those best practices, making sure everyone has access to a secure shared workspace.
Yeah, so you've got your shared drive, version control, all that good stuff that keeps everyone organized and prevents chaos.
Exactly. Now, remote work can sometimes feel, well, a bit isolating. The sources suggest being intentional about building those connections, virtual team building activities, coffee chats, even just informal brainstorming sessions.
It's about combating that sense of disconnection that can creep in when you're not physically together.
Right. And don't underestimate the power of those one-on-one check-ins with your team members. It's a chance to touch base, address any concerns, make sure everyone feels supported.
It's that human connection that can really make a difference. And of course, there's the financial side of remote work. The sources talk about having a clear reimbursement policy for those home office expenses.
Things like internet, office supplies, maybe even a portion of their utility bills. And it's important to make sure that policy is fair, competitive with what other companies are offering.
It shows that you value your remote workers, that you're invested in their well-being, and you're not expecting them to bear all the costs associated with working from home.
Right. And it all needs to be clearly documented, that official remote work policy document.
And keep in mind, technology changes, work models evolve, so that document needs to be a living, breathing thing. Revisit it regularly, make those updates, keep it relevant.
It's about making sure everyone has a clear understanding of how things work in this new world of remote work. Now, moving on, let's talk about the art of persuasion negotiation techniques.
Right. Getting what you want, but in a way that builds relationships, not burns bridges.
Exactly. And the sources are pretty consistent on this point. It all starts with building trust. You do that through transparent communication, addressing any concerns head on.
It's about setting a collaborative tone from the very beginning. And it's not just about talking. It's about actively listening, right? Really understanding the other side's perspective.
That's key. And then you couple that with a clear understanding of your own objectives. What are your non-negotiables? What are you willing to be flexible on?
And sometimes asking the right questions can be more powerful than making statements, right? The sources talk about using open-ended questions to really get at those underlying needs, those hidden priorities.
It's about peeling back the layers, understanding the why behind their demands. That way, you can find solutions that address those deeper needs, leading to more mutually beneficial outcomes.
Now, I really like this idea of offering multiple options, showing flexibility, a willingness to find creative solutions that work for both parties.
Right. It shows that you're not coming to the table with a my way or the highway attitude. You're willing to collaborate to find a win-win.
And don't forget to back up your position with evidence. The sources emphasize using data, really quantifying the value you bring to the table.
Facts, figures, tangible benefits. That's what builds credibility. It gives your arguments weight, it shows you've done your homework, and you're not just throwing out random numbers.
And thinking about those potential deal breakers, those sticking points, addressing them proactively, that can prevent those nasty surprises that can derail a negotiation.
It's about anticipating those objections, having your responses ready, and demonstrating a commitment to finding solutions even when things get a bit tricky.
Now, staying calm under pressure, using polite language, those seem like pretty basic things, but they're easy to forget when the negotiation gets heated.
Absolutely. And regularly summarizing key points, making sure everyone's on the same page, that prevents misunderstandings and keeps the conversation moving forward.
And sometimes being willing to make strategic concessions, that can actually strengthen the relationship in the long run. It's about that long game, not just winning the battle, but winning the war.
Yeah. Sometimes giving a little can get you a lot, especially when it comes to building those long-term, mutually beneficial partnerships.
Yeah, being realistic about timelines, setting those expectations up front, that's key too.
It avoids disappointment and keeps everyone accountable to those agreed-upon deadlines.
Internally, the sources suggest having some kind of negotiation template, with best practices, those do's and don'ts, even gathering those successful negotiation stories to share with your team.
It's about learning from each other's experiences, celebrating those wins, and creating a culture where negotiation is seen as a skill to be honed, not something to be feared.
And ultimately, it's about finding that balance, right?
Yeah.
Ensuring your profitability while maintaining those strong client relationships.
It's not just about getting the best deal for yourself. It's about finding solutions that work for everyone involved.
Okay, let's talk about nurturing talent. Leadership development. The sources are pretty big on building leaders from within the organization, strengthening that succession pipeline.
Yeah, it's about identifying those high potential individuals and then giving them the tools and the opportunities they need to grow into those leadership roles.
And it's not just about throwing them into the deep end and hoping for the best, right?
Yeah.
There's this emphasis on structured training, mentorship programs, really giving them that support system.
Targeted workshops on crucial skills communication, conflict resolution, decision-making, those are all essential.
And pairing those aspiring leaders with experienced mentors, those who've been there, done that, can really accelerate their development.
And even implementing a leadership shadow program, where those high potentials get to spend time in different departments, seeing how things operate from various perspectives.
That gives them a much broader view of the organization, helps them understand how all the pieces fit together. And of course, regular feedback sessions are crucial, right?
Absolutely. To track progress, identify areas for improvement, make sure they're on the right track. And those cross-functional projects, where they get to lead teams outside their immediate area of expertise, those can be incredibly valuable.
It's about testing their skills, pushing them outside their comfort zone, helping them develop that adaptability that's so crucial for effective leadership.
And then you need a way to measure the impact of all those efforts. Are those leadership development initiatives actually working?
Right, you need those metrics. Are you seeing improved team performance? Are you retaining those high potential employees?
Those are the kinds of indicators that tell you if your program is on the right track, if it's actually making a difference.
And being smart about utilizing those existing resources. Maybe you have an e-learning platform, maybe you bring in some external coaching experts.
It's about finding that blend of internal and external resources that creates a really well-rounded, comprehensive development experience.
And it all needs a plan, right?
Right.
A detailed proposal outlining the timeline, the specific objectives, the expected outcomes.
Clarity is key. It gets everyone on board. It secures those resources. It ensures that the leadership development program has the support it needs to succeed.
The impact of having strong leaders across the organization, that really can't be overstated. It affects employee morale, it affects client satisfaction, it affects the bottom line.
It's about creating a culture where leadership is valued, nurtured, and consistently high quality. And sometimes those little things like peer coaching circles, those can be incredibly effective.
It's about fostering that sense of community, creating a space where aspiring leaders can support each other, share ideas, and learn from each other's experiences.
And don't forget about recognizing those achievements, celebrating those milestones. That reinforces the value of the program and keeps those high potentials motivated.
Now, of course, all of this requires a budget. So you need to be able to present a compelling case, a cost-benefit analysis that clearly shows the return on investment.
It's about demonstrating the long-term value of investing in your people, in building that leadership pipeline for the future. Okay, let's shift gears and talk about how you guide individual growth performance feedback.
Right, helping people understand their strengths, identify areas for improvement, and really reach their full potential. The sources are really advocating for a more structured approach here, a more formal system.
Yeah, and there's a definite shift towards more frequent feedback. It's not just about those annual performance reviews anymore. It's about regular check-ins, ongoing conversations.
That way, there are no surprises when it comes time for those formal evaluations. And having clear criteria so everyone knows exactly what they're being measured against, that's essential.
It creates a fair, transparent process, one that's focused on growth and development, not just judgment.
In a quarterly review process, that seems to be a good rhythm. It allows for more frequent adjustments, keeping everyone on track throughout the year.
It's about course correction, making sure people are aligned with their goals, and addressing any issues before they become major problems.
And getting input from multiple sources can be really valuable, right? Peer feedback can provide a different perspective, highlight strengths that a manager might not always see.
Absolutely. It creates a more well-rounded view of an individual's contributions to the team.
Of course, you got to make sure your HR systems can actually handle this kind of multifaceted feedback process.
Yeah. Integrating those peer evaluation modules, having a platform that can track all that feedback, that's important.
And the quality of the feedback itself, that matters a lot.
Yeah.
Being specific, using real examples, incorporating positive reinforcement that makes the feedback much more impactful.
It's actionable, it's understandable, it's motivating. And training managers on how to deliver feedback effectively, that's crucial.
Right. You've got to be able to deliver constructive criticism in a way that's respectful, supportive, and ultimately helps the individual grow.
It's a skill that needs to be honed, just like any other leadership skill. And it's not just a one-way street. The sources highlight the importance of two-way feedback, encouraging employees to give feedback to their managers.
It's about creating that open dialogue, that culture of continuous improvement, where everyone feels comfortable sharing their perspectives.
Exactly, and having that self-assessment component, encouraging employees to reflect on their own performance, that can be really powerful too.
It builds self-awareness. It fosters that sense of ownership over one's own development. And then, of course, having some kind of standardized evaluation forms helps to ensure consistency and fairness across the board.
But you also want to allow for some flexibility, to accommodate the unique requirements of different roles.
Right, because not everyone's job is the same. So the evaluation criteria shouldn't be a one-size-fits-all approach. And then all that data from those performance reviews, you can use that to inform promotion decisions, career planning, all that good stuff.
It creates a clear link between performance and opportunities for growth.
And finally, before you roll out any major changes to your feedback system, the sources recommend a pilot test.
Yeah. Try it out with a small group, gather feedback, work out the kinks before implementing it organization-wide. It's always better to be safe than sorry.
I'd love to talk about keeping your image fresh, brand revitalization, making sure your brand still resonates with today's market.
Right. In today's fast-paced world, brands need to be agile, adaptable, constantly evolving to stay relevant. And it all starts with understanding your audience, what they value, what they're drawn to.
And that includes the visual aspects, right?
Mm-hmm.
You might need to update your logo, refresh your color palette, really give your brand a modern look and feel.
Absolutely. A strong visual identity is crucial in today's visually driven world.
And the sources suggest doing a comprehensive brand audit, getting feedback from your clients, your employees, even industry experts.
It's about getting a 360-degree view of your brand, understanding how it's perceived, and identifying any areas that need a refresh.
Social media, that's a big one, right? Leveraging those platforms, maybe partnering with influencers, really getting your message out there.
It's about reaching your target audience where they are, creating those engaging campaigns that generate buzz and build excitement.
And don't underestimate the power of packaging, the physical presentation of your product.
Updating your packaging to reflect a contemporary aesthetic, even using storytelling on that packaging to connect with consumers on an emotional level, those can be really effective tactics.
And learning from others, right? Looking at successful rebranding efforts, seeing what worked, what didn't, and making sure your messaging is consistent across all your platforms.
It's about being strategic, learning from the best, and creating a cohesive brand experience.
And of course, budget comes into play here. You've got to secure those funds for advertising, for design, for all those revitalization efforts.
And be prepared to present a compelling case, showing the potential return on investment.
And maybe you have a big launch event, some kind of immersive experience, or you partner with another brand to really amplify your reach.
It's about creating those memorable moments, generating that excitement, and making a splash in the marketplace.
Testing the waters before you go all in. It's always a good idea. Maybe do some concept testing, get feedback from your target audience.
And assemble that dedicated task force, the team that's going to oversee the entire revitalization process, making sure everything runs smoothly.
At the end of the day, it's about creating a brand that's not just visually appealing, but also resonates with your target market, on a deeper level.
A brand that's authentic, compelling, and clearly communicates the value you bring to the table.
Now, let's talk about introducing something new to the world. Product launch.
Mm-hmm.
The sources really emphasize having that solid launch strategy from the get-go.
Yeah. Define your target market. Choose those marketing channels that are going to reach them most effectively. Secure those distribution partnerships. All that groundwork needs to be laid before you even think about launching.
And maybe you do a phased rollout. Start small, gather feedback from those early adopters, then make adjustments as needed.
It's a much more controlled approach, allows you to refine your strategy based on real-world feedback before going full throttle.
And collaborating with those retailers and e-commerce platforms, that's key too, right?
Absolutely. You want to make sure your product is available where your target customers are shopping. And maybe you offer some exclusive deals, those early bird specials, to incentivize those first purchases.
Create some buzz, some excitement, maybe through a social media campaign, some teaser content, get people talking about your product.
It's about building anticipation, generating that word-of-mouth marketing that can be so powerful.
And making sure people understand how to use your product, right? Having those clear demonstrations, providing your sales team with all the information they need.
So they can confidently answer questions and really highlight the benefits of your product to potential customers.
And maybe you have a big launch event. Invite the media, invite key clients. Really make a statement.
It's about generating that initial wave of attention, getting your product on people's radar.
Budget's always a factor.
Yeah.
So you'll need that detailed cost estimate, really outlining the potential return on investment.
And don't forget about the power of those word-of-mouth recommendations, those authentic testimonials from satisfied customers. Those can be more valuable than any paid advertising.
And having a referral program, that can really incentivize people to spread the word.
Yeah.
And then actively seeking out those product reviews from, those bloggers, those publications that your target market trusts.
It's about building credibility, demonstrating social proof, and really giving potential customers that reassurance that your product is worth their investment.
And it's not just about the launch itself.
Right.
It's about providing that post-launch support, gathering those customer testimonials, those success stories?
It's about building that ongoing relationship with your customers, making sure they're happy, they're getting value from your product, and they're turning into those loyal brand advocates.
And of course, you got to keep an eye on those metrics, those data points that tell you how your product's performing.
Conversion rates, engagement metrics, all that good stuff that helps you understand what's working and where you need to make adjustments. It's about being data-driven, constantly optimizing, and ensuring your product is a success in the long run.
Okay, let's talk about taking care of your people-employee wellness. The sources suggest implementing or maybe enhancing a wellness program.
Right. And it goes beyond just offering gym memberships or those on-site fitness classes. It's about recognizing that employee well-being is a crucial factor in overall productivity and engagement.
Yeah, it's about creating a culture that prioritizes health, both physical and mental. And that might mean things like offering flexible work schedules, promoting that work-life balance.
Maybe you partner with local health providers to offer discounted services. Or you organize those wellness workshops, those lunch and learns that give employees practical tools and knowledge.
And having a dedicated wellness committee, with employees from different departments, that can be really effective. They can gather feedback, organize events, really make sure the program is meeting the needs of the workforce.
It's about giving employees a voice, making them feel like they're part of the solution.
And setting those measurable goals, right?
Yeah.
Like aiming to reduce absenteeism rates or increase participation in those wellness activities.
Having those tangible goals gives you something to strive for, something to measure your progress against.
And it doesn't have to be all serious, right? Maybe you have those fun team-building events that incorporate physical activity.
Yeah, get people moving, have some laughs, build those connections, and recognizing those wellness champions, those employees who are really embracing a healthy lifestyle that can be really inspiring for others.
It's about creating a positive, supportive environment. And of course, you need a plan, right? A detailed outline of those vendors you're going to work with, the costs involved, the implementation timeline.
And make sure that plan addresses data privacy, how you're going to handle those sensitive health-related information.
That builds trust and ensures everyone feels comfortable participating.
Mm.
And then formalizing it all, putting it in writing, that official wellness policy that demonstrates your commitment to employee well-being.
It sends a clear message that you value your employees, you care about their health, and you're invested in creating a workplace that supports their overall well-being.
Now let's talk about predicting the future sales forecasting. The sources suggest refining those forecasting methods to get as accurate as possible.
Right. And it's about using all the tools at your disposal, historical data, real-time market insights, and even incorporating those qualitative observations from your sales teams.
Yeah, those salespeople who are out there on the front lines, they have those valuable insights, those anecdotal observations that data alone can't capture.
And then there's those AI-powered predictive tools. They can crunch huge amounts of data, spot those complex patterns, and really help you refine those forecasts.
But even with all that tech, you still need to consider those external factors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Seasonality, promotional campaigns, the overall economic climate, those can all impact sales.
It's about having that comprehensive view, factoring in all those variables that can influence your projections.
And collaboration is key here, right? Making sure your sales forecasts are aligned with what's happening in other departments, production, logistics.
Today, we are diving into something that I think is so crucial for all of us, no matter what kind of work we do. And that's just, how to have more impactful and effective conversations in a professional setting. I feel like a lot of us maybe get a little bit nervous or, just aren't quite sure how to really nail those important conversations, whether it's presenting an idea or, giving feedback or even just navigating a tricky situation with a colleague.
Absolutely. And the range of situations that you've shared with me really covers a pretty impressive spectrum of business life. We're talking everything from the strategic planning level all the way down to, the day-to-day of how we give performance feedback or how to even handle like a full-blown crisis.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, we really do. So let's just dive right in, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay, so first up, we're going to tackle that crucial foundation of any successful organization, and that is strategic planning. And it seems like just nailing those initial planning sessions and getting really, really clear on those core objectives right from the start is absolutely paramount.
Yeah, and one thing that really stood out to me from the material you shared is this emphasis on outlining your priority goals first. Like really understanding the why before you even start thinking about how you're going to allocate resources.
Yeah, it's sort of like, figure out where you want to go before you start packing the car, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And so often what happens is that teams kind of jump straight into the tactics. They start brainstorming ideas. They start talking about, who's going to do what, but without really having that crystal clear understanding of those 2 or 3 non-negotiable outcomes.
Right.
And what the sources really suggest is that you flip that. So you define those outcomes first, and then you use that as a filter for all of your subsequent discussions
Right.
and your resource allocation. So it's like everything has to pass through that filter of, does this actually contribute to achieving those priority goals?
Right. So it's like having that North Star to guide all of your decisions.
Exactly.
And it's not just about setting the destination, is it?
No.
The material also really highlights the need to identify key milestones along the way, those markers of progress.
Yeah, it's like having signposts on a long journey.
Right. Yeah.
You need to know if you're still heading in the right direction.
Right.
And if we sort of connect this back to the bigger picture, those milestones are really vital for team alignment. Every department needs to understand not just what their specific responsibilities are, but also the deadlines attached to them.
Right.
And that clarity really fosters accountability and keeps everyone moving in sync.
And speaking of moving forward, another big theme that emerged from the material is this idea of thinking ahead, anticipating potential challenges. The sources really emphasize the importance of considering, those potential market shifts or external factors that could throw you off course.
Yeah, and actually drafting contingency plans.
Yeah.
It's like having a what-if playbook ready to go so you're not caught off guard.
Right.
And it raises a really important point about proactivity.
Mm-hmm.
It's not enough to just react to changes. You need to anticipate them.
Uh-huh.
And so setting those clear review intervals like the material suggests allows you to revisit your plans, assess the landscape and make necessary adjustments.
Right.
Before a small bump in the road becomes a major detour.
So it's all about staying ahead of the curve. Now, one thing that seems really crucial to being able to anticipate those changes is staying informed. And the material mentions, gathering data from recent surveys and really taking the time to analyze emerging trends. It's almost like information is the fuel that powers effective strategic planning.
Absolutely. And what struck me is this plan to coordinate a dedicated review session, like actually carving out time specifically for this analysis.
Yeah.
Because so often those crucial insights kind of get lost in the day-to-day shuffle.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in the weeds.
Exactly.
And one thing that just keeps coming up in the material is the importance of communication, making sure that all the stakeholders are kept in the loop.
Right.
By stakeholders, we mean, anyone who has an interest in or is affected by the strategic plan. So that could be employees, it could be customers, investors, even suppliers.
Yeah. It's like, keeping the information flowing.
Yeah.
It's the oil that keeps that whole strategic engine running smoothly. And that open dialogue that the material highlights really does foster that mutual understanding.
Yeah.
When everyone is in the loop and feels heard, it just naturally strengthens teamwork across all the different parts of the organization.
Now, here's a really interesting idea that came up. Establishing an online platform for continuous project updates and feedback. It's sort of like creating this central hub for all things strategic.
Yeah, and what's really key here is this idea of a collaborative tool. It's not just about broadcasting information. It's about creating a space where people can actively engage and share updates, provide feedback, make the whole process more dynamic.
Right, more interactive.
Exactly.
And of course, we can't talk about strategic planning without talking about budget.
Right.
The material really emphasizes confirming a realistic budget. And crucially, involving the finance team early on.
Yes, get them involved from the get-go.
Right, so you can finalize those figures promptly and avoid any unwelcome surprises down the line.
Exactly, because those delayed budget approvals can really throw a wrench in the works.
Right.
So by bringing in finance early, you just ensure that those financial realities are considered right from the outset.
So it sounds like a lot of pre-planning is involved. The material mentions compiling a tentative schedule, having a budget overview ready for meetings,
Yeah.
and even anticipating potential barriers like supplier delays or, regulatory changes. It's like looking around corners.
Yeah, that proactive risk assessment is so important. And one thing that really speaks to that is this emphasis on incorporating contingency resources.
Yeah.
Having backup plans, not just for finances,
Mhm.
but also for, staff allocation, operational priorities. It just demonstrates that you're prepared for the unexpected.
And it's not just about internal preparation, is it?
No.
The material also highlights the importance of clear external messaging to clients and partners, making sure that they understand your direction and have confidence in your ability to execute.
Absolutely. You
Yeah.
know that clear communication reinforces credibility.
Mhm.
It strengthens those vital long-term collaborations. It just shows that you're in control. You have a solid plan.
And finally, wrapping it all up for that strategic planning stage,
Hmm.
the material talks about, finalizing presentations for the executive board, making sure you've got all your ducks in a row
Right.
and can answer any questions that they might throw your way.
And this is where all of that thorough preparation really pays off.
Yeah.
Addressing all those potential inquiries just demonstrates a deep understanding of the strategy.
Right.
And it just builds confidence at the highest level of the organization.
Okay, so let's shift gears now to something that I think is becoming increasingly important in today's globalized world, and that is cross-cultural collaboration.
Right.
And it seems like a lot of it starts with just understanding each other, Communication preferences, cultural nuances, even those tricky time zone differences.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me is that the sources really take kind of a holistic approach here. It's not just about language. It's about understanding those underlying cultural norms, the communication styles that can really impact how teams interact.
Right.
So being aware of those nuances, I think, is really the first step towards smoother collaboration.
And then, of course, there is the language gap. The material does mention bridging those language gaps,
Yeah.
suggesting targeted language support programs.
Absolutely. Language can be a significant barrier.
Right.
And providing that support just demonstrates, an investment in your global teams.
And it seems like fostering a really inclusive environment is crucial. The sources talk about respectful dialogue, inclusive brainstorming, how that can really boost global team engagement.
Exactly. When everyone feels valued and their contributions are respected, regardless of their cultural background, it creates a much more engaged and productive team environment.
Right.
And that inclusive brainstorming, it just ensures that you're getting those diverse perspectives and considering all those different angles.
Now, diversity training also gets a nod as a way to help everyone understand those different cultural norms and hopefully avoid some of those unintentional misinterpretations.
Yeah, and this really raises an important point about cultural sensitivity. Diversity training just helps build that awareness and empathy.
Right.
And you're fostering a more inclusive workplace where those misinterpretations are less likely to occur.
To really get into the practical side of things, the material suggests, scheduling periodic workshops with experienced facilitators on effective cross-border collaboration.
Yeah.
Bringing in the experts.
Yeah, that proactive learning approach, it's so valuable. Having those interactive sessions guided by experienced facilitators can really equip teams with those practical tools and techniques for navigating all the complexities of cross-cultural collaboration.
Right. And what's more impactful than actually seeing what works in the real world?
Right.
The material also highlights the value of showcasing successful international partnerships, gathering those case studies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Learning from those who have actually done it successfully just provides that concrete evidence of what works. Yeah. And it can really inspire teams, across different divisions to adopt those best practices.
Now, of course, sometimes things don't always go smoothly, even with the best of intentions. So the sources also address the need for a standardized process for conflict resolution among diverse teams, emphasizing, mutual respect and swift, fair mediation.
Yeah, you need to have that structured approach in place.
Yeah.
Because emphasizing that mutual respect and ensuring that the mediation is, swift and fair really helps resolve those disagreements effectively.
Right.
And it prevents them from escalating and damaging those team dynamics.
Laying down some clear expectations seems like a good idea, too. The material talks about drafting guidelines on, etiquette meeting protocols, even common collaboration tools.
Yeah, just having that consistency, those clear guidelines, it just reduces ambiguity and creates a more level playing field. And that clarity can just really enhance that cross-cultural communication
Yeah.
and make the collaboration more harmonious.
Now time zones are always a challenge for global teams. The material mentions, scheduling meetings fairly across time zones, even rotating meeting times to share the load, just being mindful of everyone's schedules.
Yeah, and that just demonstrates a real consideration for everyone's time and location.
Mm.
Fosters that sense of shared responsibility and makes sure that no one team is consistently burdened with those, inconvenient meeting times.
And it's not always the big things, is it? Sometimes it's the little things. The material mentions recognizing, unique cultural holidays and events as a way to show genuine appreciation for that diversity.
Absolutely. Even those small gestures acknowledging local celebrations, it can go a long way in creating a more inclusive, positive atmosphere.
And then finally, it sounds like you need to actually measure the effectiveness of all these efforts, developing a comprehensive plan and then monitoring collaboration feedback and project outcomes.
Yeah, that emphasis on measuring is key. Tracking that feedback and those project outcomes just provides you with that valuable data to identify, areas for improvement and really demonstrate the tangible benefits of that cross-cultural collaboration.
Okay, let's talk about the money. Budget allocation. It sounds like it's not really a static process. The sources discuss revisiting those allocations to really maximize ROI, that return on investment, really taking a hard look at department requests, projected revenue, and even those unexpected expenses.
Exactly. A dynamic approach to budgeting is essential. It's about constantly evaluating, where your resources are going and whether they're generating the desired results. And that requires, regular review and a willingness to make adjustments.
And those adjustments might mean some tough choices. The material highlights potential overspending in certain areas, like marketing.
Right.
And the need to realign those funds for, other priorities like product development or staff training.
And that really raises a good point about strategic prioritization.
Yeah.
It's about making those tough decisions to ensure that the resources are allocated to the areas that are going to have the greatest impact
Right.
on the organization's long-term success.
It's not about just cutting across the board, though. The importance of a balanced approach is emphasized,
Absolutely.
really considering each department's strategic importance.
Every department plays a role, and a balanced allocation just ensures that all of those critical functions have the resources they need to contribute to the overall goals.
Staying on top of things financially is key. The material mentions the importance of, updated revenue projections and having that all-important contingency fund,
Yeah.
the emergency savings for the business, just in case there are any unpredictable economic shifts or regulatory changes.
That financial safety net, it's just crucial
Yeah.
for organizational resilience. It allows you to weather those unexpected storms without jeopardizing your objectives.
And now, looking forward, the material also talks about allocating resources for digital transformation, integrating digital technology into all areas of the business, and detailing potential savings through things like better supplier contracts or streamlining redundant processes.
Yeah, it's about finding those efficiencies, through modern tools and smarter operations. And what really stands out to me here is this focus on not just spending, but also on saving and reinvesting those savings.
Right.
In key areas like digital transformation that can drive those
Yeah.
significant long-term benefits.
And investing in people is always a good idea. The value of recruiting specialized professionals,
Absolutely.
to boost product quality and brand reputation.
Sometimes spending more on the right talent really pays dividends.
Uh-huh.
Top-tier talent can drive innovation, enhance your competitive edge, ultimately lead to higher revenue.
And then to get everyone on board with the budget, the plan to have the finance team present a revised allocation draft.
Right.
And the need to consult with department heads on those realistic spending thresholds.
Yeah.
Just to create that sense of buy-in.
Yeah, you want that collaborative approach.
Uh-huh.
Fostering that transparency and buy-in, gathering that feedback from those department heads just ensures that the budget is realistic and that everyone feels accountable.
And then transparency seems to be a big theme, too.
Yeah.
Aligning each department's goals with those overarching financial limits.
Everyone needs to see how their team's work contributes to that
Yep.
bigger financial picture.
Yeah.
And And that alignment just ensures that everyone is working toward those same objectives and understands the constraints.
And then at the end of the day, it all needs to be presented clearly, summarizing those findings for the executive committee, having a concise presentation so they can easily understand the rationale.
That clear, concise communication, it's just essential for gaining approval and making sure that leadership understands the why behind your recommendations.
And backing it all up with solid reasoning. The material talks about the importance of well-structured documentation to justify each allocation choice. No leaving room for ambiguity.
Absolutely. That logical justification just builds confidence in your financial stewardship.
Yeah.
And makes it easier to get those proposals approved.
And it's not over once it's approved, right?
Right.
You still need to monitor that spending closely.
Yes.
Adjust promptly if there are any unexpected issues. It's ongoing vigilance.
Exactly. Proactive oversight is key to protecting that budget integrity.
Yeah.
And making sure that you stay on track to achieve those goals.
Okay, let's talk about how we all work together now, and that is remote work.
Right.
Which I think has become so prevalent in recent years. The material really emphasizes formulating a clear framework.
Yes.
To ensure productivity and consistent communication, really addressing things like schedule expectations, reporting methods, those crucial collaboration tools.
And what's interesting is that the focus here is on structure within flexibility. It's about defining those necessary parameters for effective collaboration, but also allowing for that autonomy that remote work offers.
Right. So finding that balance is key. So that includes, defining those core working hours across different regions, but then also allowing for that flexible scheduling with a shared overlap for real-time discussions.
Precisely. That shared overlap just ensures that teams can connect when needed, but the flexible scheduling respects, individual needs and time management preferences.
And it sounds like virtual meetings are a big part of that, but the material also cautions against overuse.
Right.
Emphasizing balancing those virtual meetings with personal focus time.
Yeah, we all know those back-to-back meeting days can be brutal.
Right. They can really hinder productivity.
So effective remote work recognizes the need for both connection and individual concentration.
Security is also paramount in a remote environment. The material highlights updating data security policies for remote setups, including things like VPN usage and software updates.
Yeah, this really raises an important point about protecting sensitive information. Consistent VPN use and regular software updates are just fundamental for mitigating those cybersecurity risks.
And getting IT involved is crucial. The need for IT to provide best practices for secure information handling.
Yes.
And establishing, a shared digital workspace for document storage and version control.
Clear guidelines. And the right tools are just essential for empowering remote teams to handle information securely and collaborate effectively.
Now, remote work can sometimes feel isolating.
It can.
So the material also talks about, virtual team building activities, maybe optional coffee chats, even informal brainstorming sessions to help combat that sense of disconnection.
Yeah, it's about that intentionality of fostering connection. These virtual niches, they really help to build camaraderie and maintain that engagement among remote employees.
And then keeping those individual connections going as well with those regular one-on-one check-ins, to address concerns, gather feedback.
That personalized attention, it's so crucial for boosting morale and addressing any issues before they escalate.
And then there are those money matters as well. The material talks about the need for an established reimbursement policy for home office-related expenses.
Right.
And even gathering industry benchmarks, to make sure that it's fair and competitive.
That just demonstrates a commitment to supporting your remote workforce and make sure that they're not unduly burdened by those costs associated with working from home.
And it all needs to be documented clearly, right?
Okay.
Creating an official remote work policy document.
Yes.
And the need for ongoing revisions, as technology and work models evolve.
A clear, accessible policy just provides that guidance and ensures that consistency. And those regular revisions are just essential to keep it relevant as things change.
Finally putting it into practice, finalizing that draft, getting feedback from pilot teams, and then implementing those improvements.
Yeah, it's an ongoing, iterative process to really get it right.
Okay, let's get into the art of persuasion now. Negotiation techniques. The material emphasizes managing client expectations effectively
Hmm.
by really building trust through transparent communication and addressing concerns right from the start.
Yeah, that focus on building that strong foundation of trust and open communication, it's key. Addressing those concerns early on really sets that collaborative tone for the negotiation.
And it's not just about talking, it's about actively listening, empathizing with their viewpoint and setting clear objectives for yourself.
Absolutely. Understanding their perspective allows you to find that common ground, while your clear objectives keep the negotiation focused and on track.
Asking the right questions seems crucial too.
It is.
The material mentions using open-ended questions to uncover those hidden priorities, really understanding what's driving their needs.
Yeah, it's about going beyond those surface level demands, understanding those deeper motivations.
Right.
It allows you to craft more, creative and mutually beneficial solutions.
And offering options comes up as a key tactic.
Yes.
Demonstrating that flexibility and fostering that willingness to find a solution that works for both parties.
Presenting those alternatives just shows a willingness to work with the client and helps them find terms that align with their specific needs.
And then backing up your position with solid evidence seems essential.
Uh-huh.
Leveraging data-driven evidence to support your pricing and timelines, quantifying the value that you bring,
Right.
demonstrating those tangible benefits.
That just establishes credibility.
Uh-huh.
And it reassures clients that your proposals are based on, solid analysis rather than just arbitrary figures.
Thinking ahead about potential roadblocks is important too.
Yeah.
Considering those deal breakers and addressing them proactively.
Anticipating objections just shows preparedness
Right.
and a commitment to finding solutions.
And then staying calm and professional under pressure seems like a fundamental skill.
It is. It is.
Using polite language, summarizing key points periodically to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Maintaining that professional demeanor even in those tense moments.
Right.
It fosters that positive rapport. And summarizing key points just ensures mutual understanding.
And then thinking long term, the material mentions, strategic concessions to strengthen those relationships,
Right.
hopefully lead to repeat business.
Sometimes offering a small concession
Uh-huh.
can lead to a much larger gain in the long run. You're building that strong, lasting partnership.
Getting real about timelines from the start seems important too.
It is.
Establishing that realistic schedule.
Clarity about those deadlines. It just keeps
Yeah.
everyone accountable.
Right.
Helps ensure a smoother implementation process.
And then to keep everyone aligned internally, the material suggests drafting a negotiation template,
Right.
with those best practices, even gathering successful negotiation stories for training purposes.
Yeah, share those wins. Share those lessons learned.
Right.
Standardized guidance. It just helps ensure that consistency across your team.
Right.
While those real-life examples, they provide those valuable learning opportunities.
So ultimately, it's about finding that win-win outcome, isn't it?
It is.
Balance solutions that ensure your profitability,
Right.
but also maintain those strong professional relationships.
The goal is to achieve an outcome that meets your business objectives, but also ensures client satisfaction
Right.
and fosters that positive long-term relationship.
Okay, let's move on to nurturing talent within the organization. Leadership development. The material talks about, having an initiative to really nurture potential managers internally, strengthening that succession planning.
Yeah, that proactive approach to building future leaders from within the organization.
Mm-hmm.
It's a key theme.
And it's not just throwing them in the deep end and hoping they swim right.
No.
Offering structured mentorship and training, targeted workshops on, crucial skills like communication, conflict resolution, decision-making.
Providing them with those foundational skills and knowledge that they need to succeed.
Pairing new managers with experienced mentors.
Yes.
Maybe even implementing a rotating leadership shadow program.
Yeah, giving them that broader view of different parts of the organization.
And then those regular feedback sessions to track progress, identify areas for development, maybe even offering cross-functional projects to really test their ability to adapt and lead in different situations.
Yeah, constructive feedback, it just helps individuals grow. While those cross-functional projects, they challenge them to work outside of their comfort zones and develop those broader leadership skills.
And it sounds like you need to be able to actually measure if the program is working.
Right.
Developing specific metrics like improved team performance or employee retention rates.
Yeah, you need those tangible measures to validate the program's effectiveness.
And then looking at what resources you already have or could leverage.
Right.
Evaluating existing resources like e-learning platforms, maybe even bringing in external coaching experts.
Leveraging both internal and external resources. It creates a much more, comprehensive and well-rounded development experience.
And it all needs a well-thought-out plan. Compiling that detailed proposal, outlining the timelines, objectives, expected outcomes.
Yeah, that clarity
Right.
on the program's structure and goals.
Uh-huh.
It's essential for gaining buy-in and securing the necessary resources.
And that consistent leadership quality across the board can have a really significant impact.
You can.
The material talks about how it directly boosts employee morale and client satisfaction.
Strong leaders, they inspire their teams. They create a more positive and productive work environment.
Uh-huh.
And that naturally translates to better client relationships and overall success.
Now, peer support can be really valuable, too, incorporating things like peer coaching circles to encourage that knowledge sharing and collaborative problem solving.
Yeah, collaborative learning just fosters that supportive environment and allows participants to learn from each other's experiences.
And recognizing those achievements, celebrating those milestones, completing a training module, taking on a new leadership responsibility.
Acknowledging progress and celebrating those successes just reinforces the value of the program.
Right.
And motivates participants to strive for excellence.
And then finally, securing the necessary budget.
Right.
And presenting that persuasive cost-benefit analysis to really demonstrate the value of this investment in future leaders.
Yeah, you need to demonstrate those long-term benefits and the ROI.
Right.
To gain that executive approval and secure the necessary backing.
So ultimately, it's about building for the future, isn't it?
It is.
Creating that robust leadership pipeline.
Investing in leadership development is a direct investment in the future.
Okay, let's talk about guiding individual growth now. Performance feedback. The material discusses establishing a more structured system, to really guide professional development. And ensure that those evaluations are timely and constructive.
And what's interesting to me is this movement toward a more continuous feedback process. We're kind of shifting away from just those annual reviews to more frequent ongoing conversations that really support development.
And those regular check-ins, they help prevent those dreaded surprises during the annual review.
They do.
And having transparent criteria.
Yes.
So everyone knows exactly what they're being evaluated against.
Regular feedback and clearly communicated expectations, it just creates a much more fair and supportive environment.
Implementing a quarterly review process with, clear goals and actionable feedback seems like a good rhythm to get into.
Yeah. Shorter review cycles allow for more frequent course correction and help employees stay focused throughout the year.
Now, getting feedback from multiple perspectives can be really valuable.
It can.
Peer feedback provides those diverse viewpoints, highlights strengths that a manager might not always see.
Balanced input from various colleagues just provides a more comprehensive view of an individual's contributions.
And then making sure that your HR system can actually handle this more robust process.
Right.
Accommodating both managerial and peer evaluation modules.
Integrated technology can really streamline that feedback process.
Right.
Make it easier to both give and receive feedback.
And then the quality of the feedback itself really matters, too.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, emphasizing specific examples in those feedback comments.
Right.
Making sure to incorporate positive reinforcement.
Concrete examples just make the feedback more actionable and easier to understand.
Right.
While positive reinforcement, helps build confidence. Encourages continued growth.
And then training managers on how to actually deliver that feedback supportively and respectfully.
Absolutely. Giving effective feedback, it's a skill.
It is.
And it needs to be developed. Empathetic and constructive communication. It just builds trust and makes employees more receptive to feedback.
Right. And it's not just a one-way street, though.
No.
The material talks about the importance of two-way feedback.
Right.
Encouraging employees to provide feedback to their leaders.
Yeah.
Maybe even including a self-assessment component.
Encouraging employees to reflect on their own performance and provide feedback to their leaders just creates a more, a more open and collaborative environment.
Consistency is important, too.
Yes.
Standardizing those evaluation forms.
Right.
But then also allowing for role-specific flexibility.
Finding that balance, ensures a fair and consistent process, but also recognizes those unique responsibilities.
And then using all that data wisely, consolidated data from those reviews can inform promotion decisions, help incorporate future career objectives into those ongoing review discussions.
Yeah, you're really linking that performance feedback
Right.
to career development.
And finally putting it to the test, before full rollout. Finalizing that framework, conducting a pilot test with maybe a small department.
Right.
Get that feedback, make
The
adjustments.
pilot program allows you to gather that real-world feedback and,
Right.
and make those necessary tweaks.
Okay, let's talk about keeping your image fresh. Brand revitalization. The material talks about, brainstorming ideas that really resonate with today's market trends,
Uh-huh.
really understanding current consumer preferences.
Yeah, and what's key here is this recognition that you constantly need to evolve and adapt your brand.
Right.